Hey everyone, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Free agents, they are starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together. We can see the puzzle, we can see the missing pieces, and the Minnesota Vikings are slowly adding. They've added 1-7 after they subtracted another one. Does the math add up? We'll talk about that next, coming up on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
Hey everyone, it's Ron Johnson. We got Joey Harrington, as I said, coming up in the Hang with Ron Johnson segment. We're going to talk a little bit of Vikings free agency as well. What's going on? Who's gone? Who's in? One Cardinals player left. Another Cardinals player joins. Both wore number 7. Does the math add up? Like I said, we'll talk about that coming up when I get Sam Ekstrom on the show, my producer. But I want you guys to remember, this episode is powered by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Just make every moment more. Head to FanDuel.com/locked on to get started today. And as I said, tomorrow, it's time. Like, tomorrow is the best. I feel like people take the day off. I think I need to take the day off of work tomorrow, because tomorrow is the best time of the year where I get to have my laptop, my other laptop, my iPad, and my TV all going at the same time, because it's March Madness and there's going to be a bunch of games on at the same time right around that midday when the kids get home from school. I got to take care of the kids for a little bit, but then I'm going to jump back into that basketball once the kids are doing their homework. But we got to bring Sam Ekstrom to the show. Sam, a lot has happened overnight. That's the one thing about football, is you can go to sleep and wake up and the world has completely changed for your team. For those that are not keeping track, the Minnesota Vikings have re-signed Garrett Bradbury. They have restructured Kirk Cousins' deal. And Kirk Cousins is going to get his money. It's just spread out. I'll let Sam explain that a little bit more. But the Vikings are slowly but surely freeing up cap space, getting deals restructured, getting guys re-signed, and cornerback was the question. They got rid of Patrick Peterson left and went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He wore number 7. So you subtract a 7, you got to add a 7. The Vikings have signed Byron Murphy, cornerback from the Arizona Cardinals, 6 foot, 190-pound young corner. This is his 4th season, 4 years experience. He's young. He's good. This is a good piece and a good addition to an aggressive defense, a team that wants to play a little bit more man, get a little bit more aggressive up front. Byron Murphy, being young, but also being a veteran, I think is going to help this team. It's been a while since probably Xavier Rhodes when they've had a true young veteran. They did bring in Patrick Peterson. They have drafted guys like Cam Dantzler, Caleb Evans, but those guys are young. Andrew Booth Jr. And then you bring in older guys. Duke Shelley might be a guy they bring back. Duke Shelley had a good year, but they have signed Byron Murphy. So that's the first piece of that defensive puzzle as far as cornerback and safety. I know they got Harrison Smith is still out there. You look at Dalvin Cook just posted like a Vikings hype video. So does that mean he's excited to be back? Because they did add, we talked about Josh Oliver, big blocking tight end. You re-sign Garrett Bradbury, your center. So clearly you're trying to run it back with some of the same things and maybe add better pieces to the run game puzzle. And I talked about this during the season, Sam, and we talked about this. Running to Christian Darrisaw's side was no issue. It was running to the other side, not Brian O'Neill, but just, I think, center guard to that right side of the line. It just didn't always seem solidified. We had a lot of guys blowing through on the Dalvin Cook jump pass, all that kind of little stuff. That just didn't seem like they solidified it. So maybe adding an additional big blocking tight end, your line can focus more inside and not worry so much about the outside, because the outside guy can handle himself now. He doesn't need help. He can help out, but the inside can solidify, keeping that pocket a little bit cleaner, a little bit slower rush, and not so quick up in Kirk Cousins' face. but also in the run game, running that outside zone, running that tall sweep. You now have a big body that can be 1-by-1 off TJ Hockenson. So the Vikings are, again, they're adding these pieces to the puzzle. You still got to figure out if Dalvin Cook's just good to go. There's no restructure needed, or what's going to happen there. We know Harrison Smith, there's going to be talks there. But Garrett Bradbury is back. So that answers that question of, drafting a John Michael Schmidt. Now, here's the thing. Garrett Bradbury can play guard. John Michael Schmidt can play guard for the Gophers. So I wouldn't be surprised if that still ends up happening, or like everybody's saying, draft another corner. You got Byron Murphy. You got rid of all your corners. You had to bring in one or two, and you're going to have to draft a guy, maybe Duke Shelley after the draft. But the pieces have fallen so far. Again, we will never know until OTAs and training camp. I never like to really put this is going to be great because of this. We don't really know. But what do you think, Sam?
Well, I'm just confused about where the money's going to come from. I guess I'm not confused. I know how they're going to find the money. I just know that they need to make moves to get the money. They've signed Davenport to 13, Oliver to 7, and Murphy to 11 per year. And the cap structures differently. Sometimes the money's backloaded, sometimes it's front loaded. Not exactly sure how much is hitting the cap this year, but I know they've got to make some moves. So one of those moves yesterday, they restructured Kirk Cousins. They kicked $16 million into void years, which basically means they're screwed against the cap next year. But they clear up money that way. So is the next move to trade za'darius, clear up money that way? Did they cut Harrison Smith? Did they cut Dalvin Cook? They need about 2 other moves, Ron, to make this work, because these are aggressive moves. Marcus Davenport, Byron Murphy, these are aggressive moves for players in their mid-20s, in their prime. So the Vikings are trying not to lose talent on defense. They replace one talented corner for another, potentially one edge rusher for another. So if there's any thought that this is sort of a rebuild, it's not. They're restocking the cupboard with some fresh talent.
Yeah, and fresh talent. Again, the defense. I like the fact that they're adding so many defensive pieces, because that was the issue. Let's be real. We could say it was Ed Donatell's scheme. Ed Donatel said the players weren't paying attention half the time. The players said they're going to take over the defense for the Giants game. And Ed Donatel said, the veterans took over. You're going to like what you see. I don't think we liked what we saw. So I think it was all parties needed to separate. Ed Donatel needed to go, and maybe some of these older defensive pieces that they thought they wanted to have probably needed to go. We look at the Miami Dolphins, and you look at what Brian Flores built with the Miami Dolphins. You look at the fact that when he got fired, the defensive coordinator did not go. So the fact that the owners kept the defensive coordinator with the Miami Dolphins after Brian Flores left, quote unquote, it's the same Brian Flores type defense in Miami, and they did pretty well. Now, they did have some up and downs where, Tua gets hurt and so on and so forth, but the defense didn't do bad. And Brian Flores clearly knows how to build a defense, clearly knows how to put pieces on the field. So this will be very interesting to what's going to happen with this Vikings defense. But, again, he's getting those pieces in there. But we got Joey Harrington coming up in the Hanging Around Johnson segment. Looking forward to that. You guys got to stick around for that. He's going to hang out and hang around Johnson. He's also going to do the Daily 3 with myself and Sam. And Joey has some great stuff. Like, he's giving away some custom Jordan. If you're a sneakerhead and you like custom Jordans, 1 of 1s, 1 of 5s, there's 5 custom pairs of Jordans. And he's going to tell the story. The guy that created the Jordan 1, one of the artists for Nike, gifted him 5 pairs of Jordans to raffle off. $25 raffle. You can join in. A couple more days for it. Go to the harringtonfamilyfoundation.org. But you're going to want to check that out. $25, get you a raffle ticket and again, like a 1 of 1. I mean, these on the street will go for $4,000, $3,000 or $4,000, because there's only 5 of them. So if you're a sneakerhead, and these are legit Jordans made by the Nike creator, one of the artists, we know the whole Phil Knight, Oregon story, and how they love their Oregon players. Joey Harrington being one of the best ever at quarterback, Heisman Trophy candidate. So you're going to want to stick around and hear that story as well and what he's doing. But remember, you can check out the Minnesota Football Party 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday. Get your Vikings fix with Arif Hassan, Luke Inman, Luke Bryan, and Sam Ekstrom on Locked On Sports Minnesota. And we have a word from our sponsors.
Thanks, Ron. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, as it is every day. NBA season, NHL season coming down the wire. March Madness around the corner. perfect time to sign up and get a no-sweat first bet where you get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Safe, secure, very easy to use. There are numerous ways to bet. Check out all the wagers. Look at point totals in basketball. Look at goal scorers in hockey. You can put together same-game parlays for a chance at huge payouts. Don't miss that no-sweat first bet either. New signups get a chance to win up to $1,000 back in bonus bets when your first bet doesn't win, or if it doesn't win. Hopefully it does. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
So as promised in the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment, this one is a blast from the past. When you think about Oregon Duck football, you think of Nike uniforms, you think of that weird little duck guy that runs around, you think about the cheerleaders, because I know they are very famous in the sports world, but then you think of Joey Harrington. And I remember Joey Harrington. We were in the same draft class. We both did the rookie premiere together. We both did the Hey Rookie You're in the NFL out in California together. We did the symposium together. And when you go through that whole world, the one thing I remember is Eric Crouch. We always joked about that. We thought that Joey Harrington should have been the Heisman Trophy winner, but you had Joey Harrington, you had Rex Grossman, and then you had Eric Crouch from Nebraska. And I saw a guy playing piano on Twitter, and it got kind of famous fast. Like, it went viral. So I got to bring Joey Harrington onto the Hang with Ron Johnson segment. Joey, appreciate you, man. So I got to jump out there. Like, a lot of people enter Twitter and, their own way. Like Peyton Manning, he started off with a joke. Eli Manning started off with a Super Bowl joke because he was doing something for like some kind of hot sauce or something. Who knows what? Tom Brady did the underwear picture to let people know he was a part of the world, his combine picture. And then you are playing a piano, and Mina Kimes from ESPN, she retweeted that was not the weirdest thing she's seen today. She's very intrigued of why Joey Harrington is playing the piano. Jump into that. Like, where is that from, or what did that even, how'd that even come about?
Oh, okay. Well, it's good to see you too. First of all, glad to see that you still you've moved on and don't harbor a grudge from that incredible Sun Bowl in '99. But so to talk about the piano, the Twitter thing. So I got to know Mina when she was doing a piece for on Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
And just his explosion into the NFL and what kind of guy he is. And so we just connected on Twitter. She's fantastic at what she does, incredibly well read, well educated. Like, it just has really crisp, in my opinion, insight into that side of the game. And so just through conversation, she said how much she can't get that Burger King jingle out of her head, right? And I saw somebody who posted, like, they turned the Burger King jingle into like a wedding march or like a wedding theme, and I just sent her something. I was like, actually, Mina, I don't hear it as a wedding song. I hear it more of kind of like a jazz club song. So I just took the Burger King jingle and just pretended I was down at a jazz club, back in 8th grade and playing with the trio, because that's kind of my, I don't want to say my background, but I played for, God, I'm 40. We're old now, right?
We are old.
I did some quick math. I was like, okay, started when I was 4. So I've played the piano for 40 years now.
Wow.
It's a long time. Yeah.
That is. I didn't know you played the piano. That's something that scraped by when we were down there in California hanging out at the Rose Bowl. And, because like we did a talent show for the bowl game. And, for those that don't know, Joey Harrington played for the Oregon Ducks, one of Glenn Mason's many demises, but you know what? I've learned every demise of Glenn Mason has always produced great talent. Joey Harrington was a part of one of the demises. The other one was Phillip Rivers. The other one was Michael Crabtree. Like, Glenn Mason and superstars were synonymous with losing bowl games. It just is what it is. Karan Riley just said that. He said Glenn Mason, something forgot. He's like, but he couldn't coach in the second half. Like, he just bowl game, second half, Mason, I don't know what happened, but and it's probably the players' fault too. We probably were a little bit too partied out from the whole week of stuff. But when you look at that talent show down at the bowl game, Oregon versus Minnesota, Why didn't you offer that as your talent show talent to get up there and, tickle the ivories?
Nobody asked. It's not like I wheel around a piano on my back. It's like, hold on, let me just, pull a piano out of my sleeve. Yeah.
That you should, but just, like you were Joey, like there was a billboard. I'll never forget this. There was like a Nike billboard with you on it trying to push the Heisman thing. Like they should have had somebody with a Nike piano that just followed you around town to help the Heisman campaign. And you just would like sit down at random restaurants in your uniform, just playing the piano for people, not for money, for votes. And that's see, there you go. That could have been your bit.
Yeah.
Still might be your bit for charity. Like think about that. Joey Harrington in his uniform playing the piano around town for money for charity with a sign.
Okay,
up.
it's funny you say that. So I literally just this weekend, I was sitting there and I was thinking, God, like watching the tourney games, the conference tourney games. I was like, I'm so excited for March Madness. And I was like, I thought of one shining moment, and we're running our foundation raffle right now. So I actually sent out another Twitter, video doing the one shining moment song, but attached our fundraiser link to it. Like, you know what? Maybe it does. Maybe that's how I get eyeballs onto our fundraisers for our students. I mean, hey, I'm not above.
Can you sing though? Can you sing?
No.
See, but you know what? I don't know if you saw the ESPYs, Kirk Cousins, or the NFL honors. Kirk Cousins got up there and sang. I think George Kittle or somebody sang.
Ooh.
Yeah. You need to just create like a joking medley about NFL quarterbacks or something and just sing it out. That could be another way to get videos.
We'll see how this we'll see how the scholarship promotion
starts out.
Right. That's that's where I'm starting right now. Like, we'll see if the piano, if I can get enough people to click and buy a raffle ticket for the Jordans that we're raffling off, right? Then I'll know that the piano video bit works and we can branch out into it. You could be the you can be the writer. Like in the backstage, like we could, hey, how about this? Try this one out. And I could, all right, put it to chords and then we could team up.
Exactly. There you go, for charity. So we can make that happen. Talk a little football. So Joey Harrington, as we know, drafted the Detroit Lions, played against the Minnesota Vikings a number of times. You and I were talking, and this is a story like Sam remembers the missed kick. I did not know about the missed kick, but I know missed kicks in Vikings history. They go hand in hand. But this one actually went in the Vikings' favor.
Oh,
you were telling me the throw-up story. What was going on Vikings Lions?
Oh man, that would have been 05, I believe.
Yeah.
And I woke up in the middle of the night. I mean, it had to be food poisoning or something. And I was just sick as a dog. And I couldn't get back to sleep in the hotel. So I ended up going over to the stadium, probably like 6 a.m. and just hooking up an IV and just laying there. And we're going, the whole team's going through warm-ups. And I was like, I'm going to have this thing, into my vein until 1 o'clock kickoff until 12:59. And then we'll see how we go. And I got out there and, one of those games, hey, look, between you and me, right? I didn't exactly have a whole lot of success in the NFL, right? Didn't exactly light the world on fire. That being said, I remember going out in that game and we were down a couple touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And it was one of those moments where it was like, you know what, I'm probably going to pay for this. At some point, I'm probably going to throw up in a bucket on the sideline, but we're just going to go. And we came back and Roy Williams and I went down the field twice in the fourth quarter. I threw him a touchdown back shoulder in the corner over there. And we come off the field. I was like, oh my God, we're actually going to do this.
Right.
Looked back when I heard the groan from the stands, because we were at Ford Field, and looked up on the board and saw the snap landed short, or the holder dropped it, and we missed the kick. Because the holder dropped the PAT snap. After all the work we did, we lost 28-27.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So all of that work, you threw up, food poison. And that's the thing. I was going to say, were you in Minnesota? So you got food poison in your own town.
Oh yeah. I'm sure the people, and like I said, I didn't play real well. They may have been trying to, proactively get me out, right? Because let's be honest, like it wasn't exactly a stellar stretch for me during those years in Detroit. So maybe you're bringing something up here.
This is what I'll say though. This is what I'll say because we had Rachel Barrabo on. If you get a chance, look her up. She's great. You played 6 years in the NFL. You played six more years.
Don't be taking a year away from me.
7. Am I mad?
Just because I didn't, I backed up Drew doesn't mean that year doesn't count. Come on.
They're already showing me 6. What year? Oh, was it 2008?
In New Orleans.
That's the one that the Football Reference does not like you. You need to tell them that. They need to update your bio because they don't like you. But yeah, so you played 7 years in the NFL. You did something that only 0.06% of college athletes even get to do. Oh. You did something more than like 0.0000% of American human beings, different country, whatever, get to do. So you, in my book, man, like you were one of the greats. You've done something that a lot of people have not done. Lead games, take the snap, be the guy everybody's looking to. And when you look at that, like throwing, 17 touchdowns, 19 touchdowns, like that's not an easy task to do. But going back to your college days at Oregon, and you look at Oregon then, and you look at Oregon now, you guys were kind of because I remember the bowl game we played you guys, and I'll never forget when we were talking. It had to be talking to some of your teammates maybe, and we were at like the little pep rally, and we were asking them like, man, what did you guys get? Because you remember like you get a gift every day in the hotel, and there's a bag or a sweatsuit or something, and you guys had like custom Nike like Letterman jackets with a duck on the back. No. You guys had something else
You're just jealous and you're making this.
I'm telling you, you guys' gifts were better than ours. I just remember that. I remember either it was your Nike gifts were better. We both were Nike schools. We're like, how is this? But I'm like, Phil Knight, I get it. But when you look at Oregon now and Oregon then, you guys kind of were the start of that. What did that feel like in that timing? Like as you started to grow within this Oregon, you saw Nike really kind of come alongside of Oregon and was kind of like the first, like, hey, look, we're going to give you guys cool uniforms. We're going to do this. Like, what was that like being a part of that?
Well, so I'm going to just make a quick, addition to your point a second ago. I jokingly, say the struggles that I had in Detroit or whatever it was, but you're spot on. And the thing that people don't quite understand is for 6 years, I was a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
Only 32 jobs, right? So I was one of the 32 best people in the world at what I did, right? If you're a starting wide receiver in the NFL, you're one of the 64 best people in the world at what you do.
Yeah.
That's what people don't quite understand. Oh, he sucks. Like, well, actually, no. Like there are 2.3 billion people in this world who are not as good as Ron Johnson was at NFL as a wide receiver in the NFL, right?
Right.
So there is a definite perspective to that. It's interesting that you talk about kind of the evolution of Oregon football, right? Mm-hmm. You see it from the outside as, our team's 99, 2000, 2001.
Right.
Heisman billboard. The first year we did new uniforms, which actually we only had 2. We had a home and an away. It was just that our helmet was like kind of this iridescent green, and it was different, right? And then you see what that has done to launch where the program is now. As an Oregonian and as someone who was part of the program, I see it starting back in '86.
Okay.
Bill Musgrave came, right? Because Bill Musgrave came and took Oregon to their first bowl game in like 173 years. I mean, it was back, it was, I think Genghis Khan was still roaming into a bowl game. And you should have seen the excitement that happened, right? And so that team that went to the 88, 89 Independence Bowl in Shreveport, Louisiana, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was bitter cold. I think it was raining sideways, and there were thousands of people there. That excitement turned into the recruiting class that became the 94 Rose Bowl.
Okay.
That 94 Rose Bowl team became Kenny Wheaton, who picked off Damon Heward took it
Yep.
92 for a touchdown, which launched him into the Rose Bowl, which then became the Cotton Bowl team, which became the recruiting classes that became our team.
Yeah.
Our teams became the recruiting classes that turned into the LaMichael James, that turned into DeAnthony Thomas, that turned into Haloti Ngata. Like, start going down the list. And then they saw, you're right, Nike and Phil Knight is an incredibly generous alum of University of Oregon, ran track at Oregon, ran with Bill Bauer. Bill Bowerman was a coach and has an incredible connection, and he saw the possibilities and invested in us.
Oh, okay.
He invested in making his university special. And from that point, it's grown to what you see today. And that's the cool thing is to be able to see, like, there is literally a step by step progression that turned Oregon into what it is today. And like I said, we had a part in it. Our team that crushed you guys in the 99 had a part of it, but by no means did we start it. This was a 85, 86 slow build until we decided to dismantle you in El Paso on New Year's Eve.
Oh man. But yeah, I will say Oregon is definitely the powerhouse now. Because I think they went back. Yeah, they played them again in 2003. It looks like they had a couple of times they played them, but I forgot there was the other game where Minnesota won, because that was 2003 with like Asad Abdul-Khalid, Marion Barber, and they beat you guys. That was our rookie year.
I have no memory of that. That game never happened.
Or no, that was our second year in the NFL, because I do remember that one, because I remember everybody was saying it was one of those games where, Minnesota's going to do what Minnesota does. They find a way to lose because they were winning in the third, and then, Oregon bought it back, and then Minnesota kicked a field goal and ended up winning it. So I do remember that, because they beat Oregon and Alabama in those back-to-back bowl years. And Glenn Mason figured it out. But I will say he had Marion Barber, so that makes it a lot easier. Yeah. You got Marion Barber, Lawrence Maroney, you start getting running backs that run like that. Like, it makes it a lot easier to beat some of these teams. But when you think about your time in the NFL, we got two more quick ones before we jump to the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. Myself, Joey, and Sam are going to jump into that. When you think about your time in the NFL, and you look at, relationships, friendships, all, like all that comes with it, the brotherhood, what's some of the best or one of the best memories that you have of your time
in the NFL?
Yeah.
You want me to be honest?
Yeah, be honest.
There aren't many.
Okay.
And it's an interesting, and part of it was on me.
Yeah.
But there is such a change in the difference, and obviously college football is different now with NIL and
right,
being paid. There is a difference between a college locker room and an NFL locker room.
True.
And that genuine camaraderie, that completely uninhibited, I'm making a $750 scholarship check, you're making a $750 scholarship check, equality throughout the locker room.
Right.
That didn't exist in the NFL for me. And, there's a whole, it's a whole nother show on that. But it took me a good 6 years. I was near the end of my career before I really felt a connection to a locker room. And that happened in New Orleans. For me, it was just survival. Like, I was trying to live up to something. I was trying to always, like, oh my God, I'm falling short. I'm not holding up my end of the bargain. Right. And I think in a lot of ways that kept me from making some of those, truly, memorable connections. And it wasn't until I got to New Orleans where I was like, there's no chance that I'm going to be playing right now. Like Drew Brees is the guy, and I am not getting on that field. It wasn't until I got into that situation where I was truly able to let my guard down.
Okay.
And connect with that locker room. And there are guys there, and it's so funny. Like, I never set foot on the field, never stepped on the field at the Superdome. but I stay in touch with more guys from that New Orleans team. Guys like Billy Miller, guys like Mark Brunell, guys like Reggie Bush, just guys that, like you said, the football locker room creates this closeness, right? You're going through it all together.
Yeah.
And for me, it took a while. It took a while for me to find that place. But yeah, like I said, that's another story for another day.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to get you back on the show because that seems like a loaded question. So, when you think about that, because at the end, I'm gonna let you give yourself some advice because that's what I always do at the end. We like to let the guests give themselves like a Back to the Future moment where they get to go back in the DeLorean and run into their self at whatever age, and then give themselves some advice to help them out for the future. But when you think about that, like you said, being a top. Right now, if you think about like the top 5 picks and you think about all the pressure that comes along with it, would you say it was because of the amount of money you were getting, or was it just you put that pressure on yourself?
Was what?
To like the reason why you felt like maybe you didn't connect with guys, or you kind of put yourself in a spot where you didn't feel connected to the team at times?
I think a lot of it was probably self-created. Yeah, it was, a lot of anxiety around it. A lot of, it was, I don't know that it was something I was necessarily prepared for, but I don't know how you can prepare for something like that.
Right.
That's just one of those life experiences that sometimes you get put in a situation that you thought you were ready for, but you weren't. And it turns out differently than you would have expected. But I get asked all the time, like, do you wish you could have gone back and done something differently? And my answer is always no, because I love where I am right now. Right? I love my wife. I love my 2 boys. I love being able to coach basketball. I love being able to watch them play soccer. I love being able to wake up every day and meet them down at the bottom of the stairs and give them a hug and say, let's have breakfast, and and then watch, get them out the door and pick them up from school. And I love what those NFL experiences taught me. Right. I'm so lucky that I get to work for a foundation that I was able to start with, my first year in the NFL. Like, I get to give scholarships for a living. Like, how great is that?
Yeah, no, that's great.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of it was self-inflicted, but again, it's one of those things like you live and you learn, and I wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah, no, because I know a lot of players, like, I've had a bevy of guys on, from Spice Adams to Mel Blount, and so different age groups, different, Spice was more of a post-football guy. He became famous after football because of all his social media stuff. So I love to see that, because you do hear that, where you get to a certain team and it's like there's no connection there, whether it's yourself, you're overthinking it. You like Tommy Harris, he came on and he talked about like how he didn't enjoy it at first, being in the NFL, because he did overthink everything, and he did always like, oh, I got to do this, I got to be great at this, I got to be better at this, and it took time to like get that locker room to where they were with the Bears, and so he even brought that up, like allowing himself to enjoy it and be a part of the process. So no, I definitely understand where you're coming from, but no, that's definitely we're definitely have to get you back on, especially after, like, as the draft goes, because you have a huge insight into, having your name called, being the, first couple guys off the board. You look at teams questioning, should you have taken this guy? Should this guy be first? Should David Carr be first? Should it be Joey Harrington? Like Julius Peppers. I mean, it was a lot of that the whole time. And I remember that because Dave and I had the same agent. And so, I was kind of, going along, me, him, Tank Williams, Aiken Andale. We were all going through the Lamont Thompson, Washington State. We were all going through the process together, training together. So watching David Carr even go through that as we worked out, it's like, man, it's pressure, and for players, it's like, but then quarterbacks, you guys are you're the face. When they draft you, you got to take it. So yeah, you can't prepare. People can say whatever they want about the money and all that. It is great. It is a blessing. God does do miracles, does give you a leg up on the world, but it doesn't prepare you for what comes with it. But we're going to jump into the daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. That's myself, Joey, and Sam. And before we do that, I want you guys to remember, Locked On Sports is a proud partner with FanDuel Sportsbook. Just go to FanDuel Sportsbook /Locked On. That's FanDuel.com /Locked On to get your free offer and get started today. And we have a word from our sponsors.
Oop. Yep. Thank you, Ron. We are brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar has a new March Madness bracket challenge. If you have a favorite bar or puff, now's your time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com. I'll be voting for the cookies and cream puff. That's my favorite. When you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing to win a free box of Built Bars. 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get one, and one Locked On listener will win a 12-month subscription to have Built sent to their home every single month. You got to try Built Bars. Low in sugar, high in protein, 100% real chocolate. Run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're...
Well, now it's time for the daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each, of course. We're going to give Joey most of the time, and I'll pick up where he leaves off. Take it away, Sam.
All right, Joey. I love asking former athletes this question. And you started like 75 NFL games, so good sample size. You've got good days, you got off days, right? I want to know from your perspective as a quarterback, what's the difference? Like, what is different about feeling great, feeling confident, putting together a great game versus the days where it just doesn't click? Is it the protection? Is it the way the defense is playing, run game? What factor influences your success most?
Well, I mean, obviously it's preparation, right? You got to be prepared, and you got to know your game plan inside and out versus this coverage. This is where I'm going. This is the play. This is my check. This is what could happen. Like, literally be prepared for any situation. Mm-hmm. If you get to that point where you are completely prepared and show up to the game and go through your warm-ups and kick off and take your first snap and it just isn't feeling right, I don't know. Sometimes it just happens. Like, and sometimes it's quarter to quarter. Sometimes you get through an entire game and, nothing ever turns around. Sometimes you get into halftime and make a couple adjustments and come back out, start fresh, hit your first couple throws, and now you just start rolling. Like, at Oregon, it was a joke. Coach Mike Bellotti was our coach, and my reputation was that of not playing great in the first half and then coming back and winning in the fourth quarter. So we're coming up the tunnel at halftime one time against Utah, and we're jogging up, and he's not real happy. And he looks at me, he says, you don't have to wait until the fourth quarter to start playing well. I was like, oh, all right, cool. So I wish I had an answer for you, because if I knew, I would have done it at the beginning of every game.
Because I'd say for a guy, like when you look at Joey Harrington, one of the top college passers, 3,000 yards in 2000, just one of the greats. And so what I've always been taught as a receiver, because they're the ones throwing you the ball, the only thing I can get, there's always a lot to this, because one, you got the coach that wants a certain play. You got the receivers that want a different play. You got the quarterback that probably sees the play he thinks it should be. And then when the play's going, you got your favorite receiver, usually gets open. But then if he's not there, who's his backup? Who's the next guy you go to? What's the progression? Is it high to low? Is it corner route to hitch? Is the offensive line? And I always think it starts with protection. Like, I was with the NFL coach this weekend, and we were talking about that. And it starts with protection. Receivers, because I was asked about receivers and all these new releases. And he's like, yeah, but you know what? It doesn't matter if the offensive line can't block. And I'm like, I think it starts there, because now there's so many weird blitzes and so many. It's
fine. But that all can happen. But sometimes you just show up, like Ron. Sometimes you just show up and it's just like, man, it just doesn't feel right today.
Doesn't have it. Yeah, see, and I'm not a quarterback, so yeah,
you can't miss. Like, I've literally had days where I felt like I could stand out there, put one hand over my eyes, and then just, complete everything. And then there are literally days where I had guys running wide open up the sideline, and I overthrew them by 10 yards. Like, it does go on the quarterback. It does go on the quarterback. You just can't explain it sometimes.
Yeah, no, and that's why this game is so fickle. Like, there's only a couple Tom Brady, there's only one Tom Brady, there's one Drew Brees, like, it is what it is. What you got next, Sam?
All right, next.
All right. Who is the most talented receiver you ever had the privilege of throwing to, Joey?
Ooh. Roddy White in Atlanta was an absolute, just a freak. I mean, just one of those guys that was an unbelievable athlete, but hadn't quite figured it out. Joe Horn came to Atlanta with the year that I was there. And I don't know whether it was Joe's guidance. I don't know whether it was just, whether it was, I'd like to think it was probably because I was throwing him the ball personally, or whether it was just Roddy, like figuring out in his time. But after that year, he was big, he was strong, he was fast, he could go up after it, he had and after that year, he just exploded. Like, he was one of those guys that you looked at him and it was like, oh, this guy, like if he could only figure it out. And after that year, he figured it out. I would probably have to say that second group of amazing wide receivers. I had Chris Chambers and Marty Booker in Miami. Chris Chambers was another one of those freaks that you just wish that he had that get me the damn ball mentality, right? That Keyshawn, throw it my way. But he deferred more often, and he deferred to Book sometimes, who Book wasn't quite as good of an athlete as Chris was, but God, he could go get it when he wanted to. Roy Williams, I'll never forget, we were in practice. Roy Williams is breaking up the sideline, so running this way, and I underthrow him a little bit. The DB's on his back. He reaches out, and behind the DB's helmet, catches the tip of the ball behind his helmet, takes it, and then tucks it behind his back. The DB did a full 360 trying to find it. And he looks back and he sees Roy standing there. Roy shows him the ball and then takes off running.
Outstanding.
Oh man, yeah, you have some greats there. I'd say, like, for me, watching receivers, honestly, mine was always watching Todd Heap. Like, I feel like Todd Heap was a tight end before his time. Like, Todd Heap was more of a Travis Kelce, but back then teams needed more of a bigger Shannon Sharp type or a Tony Gonzalez type, or an Antonio Gates. Like, they hadn't figured out that smaller, skinnier, faster tight ends could actually work. You just can't run the ball as much. And I think that was the rub for the Ravens, was we ran the crap out the ball. So you got Jamal Lewis. And so Todd Heap gets hurt a lot because he's asked to block front side with these 290-pound DNs, these 330-pound tackles he's having to help out. And so Todd always had like neck and back issues, which at the time I didn't know. I was like, now I get it. I'm like, man, that dude should be like Travis Kelce. He should be backside, running routes every time, split out. Like, Todd Heap was, because against the Jaguars, because I was talking to Keenan McCarla about this, I think Todd Heap had like 2 or 3 touchdowns against the Jags, and it was all like jump ball fades. Oh. And I remember we got in trouble because this was you can't group celebrate, but after one of them, we all like posed like we were in the newspaper, and Brandon Stokely came sliding across, took a picture of all of us in the end zone celebrating together. We got a flag because you can't do that. Back then you could. Now it'd be celebrated all over Twitter. And it ended up being in like the front page of the paper, which Brian Billick, of course, puts on the screen to say, this is what you don't do. You don't end up on the front page with a yellow flag because you guys think you're cool or something. And we won the game. Thank God we won the game, because we would have got killed if we lost. But I think like Todd Heap, that was one of the most talented guys I've been around that just, hops, jumping ability, but he was ahead of his time. He was like, if you put him in today's football with Travis Kelce, he's right up there with those guys. Like, he could run every route. He could play receiver. That was the year, I forgot, my third year. We went to a season with 4 receivers only, because Todd Heap was our 5th receiver. Like, he would come in 4 receiver sets. So that just showed. But now it's celebrated. Back then it was like, oh, he's undersized. Now it's like, man, where's that guy at? Can you find me that guy? What's the last one you got for us, Sam?
Yep. In closing for me, give me an underrated quarterback, Joey, in the NFL today.
Underrated quarterback in the NFL. I'm going to go with Derek Carr. I am. I think some of the things that he did in Las Vegas and in Oakland, for that matter, he did a lot with a little. And I know that, didn't win playoff games, didn't win a championship, but he's one of those guys that I think he's going to have a breakout year here in New Orleans. I think that he is, he's not a transcendent player. He's not a generational player, and often gets, overlooked by the Mahomes, the Aaron Rodgers, the, Brady's and Breezes. But I think Derek Carr is a very underrated player, and I think he's going to have a good season in New Orleans.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd say he's underrated. Another one that I'll be interested to see now going to Oakland is Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I think a lot of times.
Did he sign with Vegas today?
Yeah. He's with the Raiders now.
Ooh.
So that will be interesting to see him with Tay Adams, and then if they get Josh Jacobs to come back in that offense, it'll be interesting to see how he handles it. And was he a system guy? And was it just the 49ers make everybody great? Or can he really get back to where he was and, who the New England Patriots thought they had before they traded him? And that's why I think he's a little bit underrated, because Shanahan's system, everybody has done well. And so now they've kind of downplayed who Jimmy Garoppolo is. So I think he's a little underrated. And of course, I always go with Kirk Cousins. Nobody really thinks Kirk Cousins is that good. They just think he does just enough. And I think Kirk Cousins is, again, I might be a little bit biased because I work with him and I see him every week. But I just feel like, the throws he makes at times, it's like granted, Justin Jefferson makes like ridiculous catches, but it's still, you got to throw it. You got to put it in a spot where only your guy can get it. You got to, trust your guy and throw it a little bit earlier. Like, it's the things he's doing isn't easy. So I will say, and with an offensive guard, and center combo that sometimes can't block, he does a good job of getting out of there, whether it's a boot or understanding like, hey, I know this blitz is coming. I got to get rid of it. So I think he's a little bit underrated. But Joey, like I said, man, at the end of every show, I love to let the guests, kind of give themselves some advice. But you said something earlier, and I was talking about this, and I wanted to make sure I hit on it. The Michael Jordan shoe in Oregon, now it's synonymous. You got teams following you guys' footsteps with the Jordan brand, but now you're giving away some custom Jordans. There's a link. We'll make sure to tweet out that link as well for our fan group, and we'll make sure to get, Care 11 here in Minnesota. They usually retweet a lot of the videos like this, so we'll make sure that happens. But explain what's going on with your foundation and the Jordan shoe, and, because I know you said you started that as a rookie.
Yeah. So, just kind of a quick backstory is, I said I get to give scholarships for a living. I set up a foundation when I got drafted, knowing that I wanted to do something to give back when I was done. The idea that I came up with was a community leadership scholarship, be a quarterback of your community. And so we give four-year scholarships to graduating high school seniors around the state of Oregon. Wow. Has nothing to do with grades or test scores, but it's all financial need and community leadership. And then we connect them with mentors. We've got a board of mentors, everybody, people from, advertising to finance to state Supreme Court justices, to be resources for our students, right? Because money is needed, but what's also needed is access. People to open doors, people to say, hey, you might want to think about going this direction. Hey, here's somebody I could introduce you to. And so our program is a 4-year scholarship and then a board of mentors to help open doors. And what we're doing is we're building a network. We're building a family, because every year our 4 graduates then go off and start their career and become resources for our current students. So I'm really proud of the program. It's 10 years. This will be our 10th year of giving the scholarship coming up. And obviously you have to raise money for it. So the fundraiser we're doing right now is our second mentor was Tinker Hatfield. And Tinker is most famously known as the designer of, Jordans from 3 through 15, and also did a couple others, but, essentially created the cross trainer, did all the Air Maxes. Like Tinker Hatfield is worldwide known as an innovator and Nike designer, yet still is connected to the community, and literally showed up, a couple weeks ago at the door with a pair of the new Jordan 14s that he did for the Oregon football team. And he signed them and said, "Hey, I'd like for you to use them as a fundraiser." Well, he had given us 5 pair of Jordan 1 retros that he did with our foundation colors and our foundation logo a couple of years ago. I was like, how could I best utilize that? So we are raffling off. It's not an auction. Like, you don't have to bid. Everybody, it's a $25 ticket to get a chance at winning an autographed Jordan 14 Oregon PE. It's only one of 275 made, and the Jordan 1 retro of the Harrington Family Foundation. That's only one of 5. Like, literally, like, even DJ Khaled doesn't have these. Like, all 5 are sitting in my closet right over there. So this is like one of a kind, holy grail type sneakerhead stuff. If you love sneakers, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, buy a raffle ticket and win them, and then, hey, go sell them for $5,000 or give them to us for sneakerhead that or if you just want to support some amazing students who need a door opened for them, go on and buy a raffle ticket.
Because I'm looking at it now. So it's the HarringtonFamilyFoundation.org. And when you go on there, it says apply for scholarship or sneakers for scholarships raffle. And so I just clicked on that myself. So very simple. So I am definitely going to make sure I get my $25 raffle, because I'm not a sneakerhead, but I mean,
you could make somebody's day who was, though.
I could either make somebody's day, or they'll probably just sit on my shelf. I mean, I'm going to just put them in a case. They'll sit on my shelf. Yeah. I mean, because I got the trophy stuff up here. I got the picture from the when we were all at the bowl game deal, not the bowl game, but the rookie deal, our picture they gave us all. So I got that in here in the office. So I'll definitely have to do that. I wasn't a big office person, like taking care, but I mean, I got my dad's jersey. My dad passed away in 2018, but I have his jersey behind me with the Super Bowl tickets and his football cards. I got a rolled up boat, or one over here from PJ Fleck, the other one from the team when my wife had breast cancer. So definitely, I'm starting to add that, like Spice Adams. I sent him a jersey. He signed it for me. So now that's what I've been kind of doing is guys I know only. Like I tell people all the time, like, I'm not out here like searching for stuff. Like Adam Thielen did something for me. Justin Jefferson signed something. I end up giving that to my daughter though. So I got to get another Justin Jefferson jersey signed so I can put it in my office. But she's a huge JJ fan. Like she does the good. Cause I was gonna say, you're not doing the gritty, are you?
No, not me. My kids though. My kids are though.
Okay, I was gonna say, because that's the next video. You got to play the piano, figure out a song like the gritty song.
Gritty.
Or your kids can do the gritty while you play the piano. Trust me, you play the piano while your kids gritty to that. Like I don't think anybody's ever grittied to piano music.
We're saying we'd sell raffle tickets
if you tag Justin Jefferson, trust me, I will make sure the Minnesota Vikings retweet that somehow. Like, trust me, that is world known grittying. But last one we got out of here, but make sure you guys remember too, and we'll make sure to have the link on our Twitter. It's HarringtonFamilyFoundation.org. You can get a raffle. Looks like it's going now. And so anybody can win. Anybody can win. Have a $125,000 goal. So I'll make sure to get that. I also reach out. My family has a foundation we did. My daughter started, doing these loci bracelets. So I'll make sure to look at our family fund as well and help you out with that. Cause we started it. My daughter started it when George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis. And so it was just supposed to be something simple. It ended up being we ended up raising like $130,000 through like Disney, ESPN, Little Caesars, and then literally just people coming up to her lemonade stand to buy handmade friendship bracelets. And so she was on like Good Morning America. She was on CBS National News. She was on Fox News. Like she was all over people interviewing her.
See, here's the thing that's so great. It's like, now I know that, she has access from you, but like, that's exactly what we're looking for in our students.
Yeah.
Just take the initiative. Just take the first step. Don't be afraid to stand out there and say, this is what I want to do. Like, congrats on you for raising such a strong, proud.
That's my wife. My wife did all that work. I just was there. I went on the radio and somebody asked me like that day, like, what do you guys, because it's about during the pandemic, nobody was doing anything. And I went on the radio and on iHeartMedia, and they're like, yeah, what are you doing today? It's Sunday, no football, blah, blah. And I literally just made a joke. I'm like, oh, my daughter's out here selling friendship bracelets and lemonade. and she's going to donate the money back to help the riots in Minneapolis.
Mhm.
And then, Chad Greenway. So Chad Greenway ends up making a big donation. And then Lindsey Whalen, Gophers coach, Hall of Famer, she does it. Then Adam Thielen sends a video of him and his son. And then it just kind of took off. The owner I got a text message from the owner of the Vikings. I never play for the Vikings. I do work for them, but the owner of the Vikings ends up texting us and sends a check. And then again, it just Michael Strahan reached out, and then Good Morning America showed up to our doorstep. And I'm like, what in the world did we sign ourselves up for? And for people that haven't seen that picture, it's still on Twitter somewhere. You could tell I was unprepared because I hadn't shaved. My beard looked horrible. Like my hair was just like, I literally looked like I was still in the pandemic. And like my wife is like, there's like a whole TV crew in the driveway. And I look out and it legit, I assume Good Morning America would like send one person. It was like the whole deal. Like they really had a whole segment, and all our neighbors like saw the TV trucks and Good Morning America's signs. And yeah, it was, but I was not prepared. So my hair looks horrible. And now that I look back on a lot of those videos, and like my beard looks ratty and long, my hair was just, it wasn't like one of those moments where I was prepared for it.
That's the power of giving somebody access, right?
Yeah. No, that was great.
A platform to be able to share their story. So, hey.
Yeah. And now we do something every year where we help out. They give money to kids and they raise it. And so we've been giving like scholarships to kids in the local area that want to go to it's a Christian school in downtown Minneapolis. And so we've been helping a kid every year get a scholarship there. But one thing I want to let you do too before we get out of here. So remember, people, $25, get you a pair of retro, one of a kind Jordans. Like I said, DJ Khaled can't even say another one. So that's a cool one. I'm gonna have to make sure I tag Khaled in that tweet to be like, you don't even have these.
Yeah, you don't.
And see what he does. But when you think about your past, and you made some comments, about you thought it was self-inflicted on some stuff. But if you can get in a DeLorean, and because you also said, you wouldn't change a thing, but if you can get back in the DeLorean and you were to tell yourself one thing in the past, or could have been 2 years ago, could have been when you were 5 years old, what would be the one thing you tell yourself to prepare yourself for the future?
Work as hard as you possibly can, which I always did, and I continue to do, but be flexible. Mm-hmm. Adapt, because you don't know what is going to happen. As much as you think like, I've prepared, I'm going to do this is how, and I think I've learned the most from that, from being a father, right? From being a parent. Like, you can't control everything.
Yeah.
You can prepare, and you can say, these are all the things I've done to be in the best position possible. And then you go and you do the best with what you got. Having the ability to be flexible and to adapt and to say, you know what, I was wrong, and I need to go back and fix something in order to get better. I think that's probably the best piece of advice that I would give myself going back.
Well, man, that's great, man. I appreciate you joining me on the Ron Johnson Show. We'll definitely, like I said, we have to get you back, right after the draft, maybe or something, see how that pans out. But definitely going to keep an eye on this sneaker raffle, see what happens there. Not a sneaker head, but I do appreciate a good shoe. And what better way to kind of get over my fear of Oregon than to just keep a pair of Oregon Nikes in my office. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Joey Harrington. We want to thank you for joining me today on the Ron Johnson Show. Remember, people, if you want endless Vikings talk, make sure you subscribe to the free Locked On Sports Minnesota app on YouTube. You can get all of our videos, all of our shows, instant press conferences after every game, and you can interact with us on Instagram and Twitter. So I want to thank you guys and have a great day.